Hello friends, this is Meeta Dikshit. Today we'll discuss about theory of consumer behavior with two approaches. There are two main approaches for theory of consumer for demand. Cardinal approach and ordinal approach. Cardinal approach is which gives the different choices with a specific utility value, and it enables consumers to rank the magnitude of how much they prefer one good to another. Whereas ordinal approach helps the consumer in ranking choices by order or of preferences. It does not try to give the magnitude of how much a consumer prefer a good. The best example for cardinal approach is law of demand, whereas indifference curve shows the ordinal approach of consumer for demand. This video will show us about the indifference curve. IC is a locus of points, each representing a different combination of two goods, but yielding the same level of utility or satisfaction. Since each combination of two goods yields the same level of utility, the consumer is indifferent between any two combination of goods when it comes to making choice between them. The meaning of indifference curve will be clear with the help of indifference schedule. This table shows the various combination of different groups of commodity X and Y. From the first group, we can see that the consumer is satisfied with the 25 units of commodity X and 5 units of commodity Y. Whereas the combination from the E group, the consumer will be satisfied with the 4 units of commodity X and 30 units of commodity Y. All these groups, when we plotted on the graph, we can see the indifference curve. On y-axis there is a commodity X and commodity Y is on y-axis. The different groups when plotted on X and y-axis, we get the indifference curve according to the combination of satisfaction. Now let's see the properties of indifference curve. Indifference curve have a negative slope. Hicks says, so long as each commodity has a positive marginal utility, the indifference curve must slope downward to the right. What he means, the negative slope of indifference curve implies that the two commodities can be substituted for each other. And secondly, if quantity of one commodity decreases, quantity of other commodity must increase if the consumer has to stay at the same level of satisfaction. The second property of indifference curve is convexity to origin. Indifference curve have not only a negative slope but are also convex to the origin. The convexity of the indifference curve requires that the two commodities are imperfect substitutes for each other and that the marginal rate of substitution between the two goods decreases as a consumer moves along an indifference curve. Indifference curve can neither intersect nor tangent. If two indifference curve intersect or are tangent, it would imply that an indifference curve indicates two different levels of satisfaction or two different combinations yield the same level of satisfaction. Such conditions are untenable if consumer's subjective valuation of commodity is greater than 0. The last property for indifference curve is the upper indifference curve represent a higher level of satisfaction. An indifference curve placed above and to the right of another represent a higher level of satisfaction than the lower one. The reason is that an upper indifference curve contains all along its length a larger quantity of one or both the goods than the lower indifference curve, and a larger quantity of commodity is supposed to yield a greater satisfaction than the smaller quantity. Now let's see The assumptions of indifference curve. The first is rationality. Rationality shows that the approach of consumer for the knowledge about the goods and the services rendered in the market for the consumer. The consumer is a rational being. He aims at maximizing his total satisfaction given his income and prices of goods and services he consumes. Furthermore, he has full knowledge of his choices and preferences. Indifference curve based on the ordinal utility. Indifference curve analysis assumes that utility can be expressed only ordinally or comparatively. That is, the consumer is able to tell only the order of his preferences. The next assumption for indifference curve is its transitivity and consistency of choice. Consumers' choices are transitive. Transitivity of choice means if a consumer prefers A to B, B to C, he must prefer A to C. Consistency of choice means if he prefers A to B in one period, he will not prefer B to A in another period or treat them as equal. The next assumption for this is non-satiety. It is also assumed that the consumer is not oversupplied with goods in question and that he has not reached the point of saturation in case of any commodity. Therefore, a consumer always prefers a larger quantity of all the goods. The last assumption is indifference curve is based on diminishing marginal rate of substitution. The marginal rate of substitution means the rate at which a consumer is willing to substitute one commodity for another. That is, the unit of Y he is willing to give up for 1 unit of X so that his total satisfaction remains the same. This rate is given by changes in commodity Y upon changes in commodity X. The assumption is that changes in commodity Y upon changes in commodity X goes on decreasing when a consumer continues to substitute X or Y. Thank you.